Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background in IoT.
Hi Bruce, first of all, very good meeting you. Bruce, when Siemens about 10 years ago, we described how the future would look like in manufacturing. And what we did, we described a picture of the future. Now sometimes it's difficult to look 1 quarter ahead. This time we were challenging us to look 15, 20 years ahead. And when we described this picture of the future, we said, you know, what's really growing together is the manufacturing process and the design process. So a company that's designing a product is already in the early design process able to understand what it means in detail to manufacturers, virtually testing the whole process through one digital thread. Well, and I was early on involved in this concept, and then we decided we need more competence in Siemens. We need more software competence in Siemens. We acquired a company called Unigraphics, today Siemens PLM Software, and I ran this company during the integration phase over 3 years. And we are now a 10,000 people software company inside this 350,000 people company Siemens.
And when was it that did you recognize IoT as being something separate, or is it just sort of a blur that it just sort of just morphed into one thing to another?
You know, IoT for me is similar to, in Europe we call it Industry 4.0. Others talk about the industrial internet. I think what's important here is we see a radical change of how do we design and produce products going forward. One digital thread, and this is something we recognized really when we drew the picture of the future for Siemens and for our customers. We didn't call it Internet of Things at the time, but the integration of the virtual and the real worlds, which is such a core element of the Internet of Things, this was already at this time very clear.
Well, then maybe you can clarify. Some people get a little bit confused about the term Internet 4. Or manufacturing 4.0 and industrial internet and IoT. Are there really any differences there?
Oh, you know, you can probably ask 10 experts and you get about 11 opinions. What we try to do is we try to translate this into an area where an industry leader can drive this really to tangible results. How does he start? How does she start making the Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, industrial internet relevant for his or her company? That's the most critical part there. And we call it therefore the digital enterprise. And the digital enterprise is built on 4 core pillars. One is to have one clear data backbone. In our case, it's provided by a PDM system, Teamcenter. And then you have 3 pillars on this backbone. Number 1 is your PLM space, where the design and the simulation of the product happens. Number 2 is everything around manufacturing operations management. This really starts connecting from the digital product into the physical realization, into manufacturing. And last but not least, the devices, the actors, the sensors on your manufacturing floor, and the intelligence which is ingrained in your PLCs, for example, or your numerical controls that drive all your manufacturing equipment. And this allows you to be faster to market, to be highly efficient, and at the same time to be flexible to address the challenges that all of our customers are facing in the market today.
So no matter what you call it, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Industry 4.0, industrial internet, or IoT?
It creates a similar set of challenges and opportunities.
Okay.
And again, here I think everyone has to define for himself or herself and for his personal challenge how to address these kind of opportunities, how to define your own digital enterprise.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about IoT-aided manufacturing. What do you see as the biggest opportunities and also the biggest threats in that area?
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity is really taking a virtual product and being able to test this product. Let me give you an example. When NASA developed the current Mars rover, and they did this together with JPL, they were wondering about how do you land something as heavy as it's actually a size of a Mini Cooper. How to land something like this on Mars. Never happened before.
Right.
6 times heavier than anything that landed there. Well, you cannot do physical prototypes. You can do this to test this, but you cannot physically test the landing. You can only do virtually testing this. And this is exactly what JPL did. They tested this landing 1,000 times. And if you remember, it was a very complex one with a parachute, with little rockets, and then a sky crane. And that's how the Mars rover landed safely on Mars. How did they do this? Virtually testing is, and there we were as a partner to JPL providing the software to make this happen. So this, I think, is a great example of the opportunities we see today, how realistic, he was really a digital twin almost. You can test as in reality something as complex as a landing on Mars.
Okay, well that sounds interesting. So using simulation effectively to simulate the physical counterpart.
Exactly, Bruce.
And what would you see as some of the threats that are in IoT-aided manufacturing?
Well, the threats is if you stand still. If you don't look for the opportunities that IoT means for your business, for your customers. And this is what we hear from many of our customers, that they come to us and say, look, we want to define our digital transformation. We want to see how can we really drive the opportunities and build opportunities on Internet of Things. The real threat is to ignore it. The moment where you're on it, the moment where you try to understand, the moment where you dig deep and you see what it means for each of your business elements, then I think you're exactly on the right track. And then you have to drive it down again to the simple business principles, what they are. It's bring the products faster to market, do it highly efficient, and last but not least, have the flexibility that you can react when market demands shift.
Now, you've brought up this cyber physical kind of a twin or representation, and I see that you said both in terms of combining the design or the manufacturing, the design and the manufacturing, and then you extended it into simulation. Is this the basis of the current trends, or what would you say are the current trends in manufacturing today?
I would say that's one of the core differentiating factor. If you're able to virtually represent not only the product but also your facilities and be able through this to virtually test the whole process through, this gives you the direct advantage. Now Siemens is in an interesting position. On one hand, we are a provider of the tools for the R&D environment as well as the manufacturing environment. At the same time, we are designers and producers ourselves. So, for example, when we developed our last and most modern and actually most powerful PLC, Simatic, we did this, we used all those tools in our own process. And today we do have a quality level, and you might imagine these PLCs, they control in our customer sites very, very complex processes, and you don't want your factories to stand still. So you want to rely on those 100%. Now the quality level there is 99.9988 through the whole manufacturing process. And this is something which is clearly world record level, and this is what you find in our own factory.
Very good. Where can our viewers find out more about yourself and more about Siemens then?
Well, I would recommend go on Siemens.com, and you're of course always welcome to follow my Twitter account, which is Helmuth Ludwig.
All right, well, we'll put that in the show analysis notes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruce.